Hey YouTube, I'm Dave. It's my first YouTube video, and I kind of wanted to share my experience with addiction. I see a lot of videos on YouTube about, people who are recovering addicts, and they share their stories about, how they got hooked on drugs and all that. And for me, I'm a recovering opioid addict. I was addicted to painkillers. Specifically Percocet. And, first I want to share my story about that. And first off, I wanted to mention that to kind of explain why I became addicted is I have suffered from depression and anxiety for about 20 years now. My parents separated and eventually divorced in 1999 when I was 13, and they were officially divorced 2 years later. And that really had a toll on me. I When I was a kid, I always was, very happy-go-lucky, and to be frank, now I kind of looking back, I kind of think I lived in a bubble just because I thought, everything was peachy and rosy, and obviously the real world's not like that. There's ups and downs, and I wasn't really prepared for that. So like when my parents split up, it was like the life was like just sucked out of me, and I just kind of lost. Part of me died that day. I just went from being this little innocent, happy-go-lucky kid who was smiling and laughing all the time to being super depressed, and I wound up going to therapy and taking like Prozac and other antidepressants, and I was on ADD medication because I have the ADD and a bunch of stuff. So, anyways, to get into opioids, which was the whole point of this video. I know a lot of people, they'll say that they became addicted. They hurt their back or they hurt their shoulder or something, and they were prescribed like Percocet or OxyContin or something like that, and that's how they became addicted. And for me, that wasn't the case. I was prescribed like drugs like that a few times. Like I had wisdom teeth removed a couple times. I had stomach surgery because I had the lap band a few years ago, so I was prescribed drugs like that. And even in the hospital, I was on morphine, which was amazing, but I loved it a lot. But I didn't crave it. Um, like when I had surgeries and various stuff, I would take the drugs, and when I had pain, and once the pain went away, I just didn't really use it anymore. And the same, and I took Oxy recreationally a few times. I remember because I was living in South Carolina, and my mom was getting prescribed OxyContin for her back because she had really bad back, and I would just sneak in, take a few and just take it from time to time. I liked it a lot, and for those of you who take OxyContin, you know what I'm talking about. It's that you get that warm fuzzy feeling inside. You feel like I describe it, and I've heard other people describe it the same way, like or similar ways. Is like it's like for me, it's like it's a cold rainy day, and you're sitting inside by the fire, and you have a nice sweater on, and you're drinking hot chocolate, and it's kind of like that. It's like that warm fuzzy feeling, kind of similar to a feeling you get when you get a nice big hug. And but anyways, so I would take that recreation from the time to time. Like I said, I got prescribed it, but I didn't really become addicted to it. And I was, I could take it or leave it. I enjoyed it, but like when I stopped taking it, I didn't get sick or I wasn't craving it, whatever. To fast forward a couple of years, I really started becoming addicted to it like 2 years ago. And go into this detail with that was before that I was buying it illegally because I didn't have insurance at the time, and I have an arthritic cyst in my shoulder which was bothering me like crazy at the time. I have a bad back, and I didn't have insurance, so I couldn't afford to go to a doctor to get like the medicinal, that strong ibuprofen or whatever. And so I had a friend of mine who was like, "Oh, I know somebody who sells Percocets." So I'm like, "All right." So I would buy it illegally from the dealer, but I was taking it I was taking like what you would if it was prescribed from a doctor. I'm a big guy, so I gotta take one, and I wouldn't get high off of one. But it took like 95% of the pain away, so that was great. I would take one every, maybe every 4 to 6 hours once I had pain, and it took all the pain away, but I didn't get high. So, and then a couple of years ago, there's some stuff that happened in my life. Like my dad got arrested, and I'm not really close to my dad, but I kind of relied on him because he was, paying alimony. Because I've been taking care of my mom for the last few years, and she was getting alimony from my dad. And once he got arrested, she lost some alimony, so money got really tight. So I was really anxious about that, and depressed, and worried about money, and um, so instead of, like I said, I didn't have insurance, so instead of going to therapy or going to see a doctor, I get back on like my antidepressants and using something for like anxiety, and going to therapy to talk about my problems, and I started self-medicating. So like if I got really depressed and where I was getting really anxious, I would take two. Instead of taking the one pill that took the pain away, I would take two, and 2 pills got me high. So, I was self-medicating with Percocet. So, and after a while, as addicts know, or a lot of people know, you get the tolerance. So 2 becomes 3, and then 3 becomes 4, 4 becomes 5, etc., and it goes on and on. And before you know it, I was taking 10, 12, 14, 16 pills a day, and $10 a pill, that adds up. It's spending 100, 150, sometimes $20 a day on pills, and it was just crazy. It was too much. And for me, I had a couple moments of clarity, and that's what inspired me to get clean. Um, One of the things was, I thought about using heroin. And for my whole life, I always knew, I would never take heroin not because I didn't like, I was above it, or I thought I wouldn't like it or anything. I was just, my whole life, I still am. I'm afraid of needles. Um, Ever since I was a kid, and I had to get blood drawn or whatever, and I remember I just was definitely afraid of pills. Definitely afraid of needles. Like whenever I had to get blood drawn or something, I would just hold my arm out like that, and I would just look away, and I would just like, just take my blood. Come on, just take it and get it done. But anyways, during the summer of last year, I started to think about heroin because I knew it was cheaper and stronger than pills, and so that was one major part in my life. One major thing I was like, that made me think about it. And then the other thing I remember is a couple times where I stole money from my mother and to buy drugs. I remember one time she had a crazy amount she had like $6 or $7 in change somewhere, and I found it and cashed it. I went to a Coinstar, cashed it in, and used the money on pills. And another time she gave me money because she wanted me to get food. She's got her Social Security, so she wanted me to buy food for the house for her. And I spent like pretty much the bare minimum on food. I got the basics like like bread and a couple of frozen dinners and milk, and then I used the rest of the money she gave me to buy drugs. So between that and like the fact that I was using heroin, I only thought about using heroin. I just had a moment of clarity. I'm like, dude, what the heck are you doing? You're thinking about using heroin? Seriously? You, the guy who's been afraid of needles his whole life? You want to use heroin? What's wrong with you, dude? And the fact that I stole money, that's something I never done in my life. I'm always pretty honest, and I was the last person you would expect to steal from somebody, and I did that for my own mother of all people. So those two things, made me wake up, and I got inspired to get clean, and so it's, like I think it was the middle of August, end of August, I started to wean myself off a little bit, and I was doing that for like maybe 2 weeks, and then early September, probably about September 10th, 11th, 12th, sometime around then of last year, took my last pill, and then I decided to go cold turkey. And it was really rough, like those of you who've taken drugs and taken opioids and then went cold turkey, you know what it's like. You anxiety, and cold sweats, and nausea. You can't eat, and you have the horrible bowel movements. I won't go into the details. Kind of gross, like diarrhea, and it was horrible. And I didn't have, like I said it earlier, I didn't have insurance, so I thought I could go to a detox or someplace or to get clean and clean myself up. I was doing it at home, and what really helped me was marijuana, because I was also smoking marijuana heavily, um, and also my mother had Ativan. She got from prescription, so I would use the Ativan for the anxiety and all that, and I would smoke marijuana for the physical parts like the nausea. That helped me a lot with nausea, and I eventually was able to finish. I got it all the junk out. I got all the junk out of my system after a few days, and I started to go into NA, Narcotics Anonymous, and that helped a lot too. And so, yeah, so I ended up getting clean, and I wound up going to an outpatient program, an IOP, intensive outpatient program, and that helped a lot. I was able to get insurance again, and so that helped, and was able to pay. That's how I was able to pay for the IOP, and I was able to get back on meds. So I was back on my antidepressant, and I've been clean now for 15 months since September of last year. It's almost 16 months, and it'll be a week or two, which is crazy. So I got 16 months clean. So that's really about it, and I just wanted to share my experience, and yeah. So if hopefully it helps somebody, I hope, or at least get some information. So, and that's really about it. So, have a great day, and hope you guys had a happy holidays, and also Happy New Year, and have a good day.